All right, we got call number 1. Hello, thanks for calling Low Value Mail.
Danny, how are you?
Good. How are you? Who am I speaking with?
I'm doing good. All right, Danny, I got another document for you to take a look at.
Oh, the document drops. Yeah, the last one was really good. What was the last one?
Document, my friend.
What was the last one that you dropped? That was on the conspiracy episode.
The last one was the National Security Study Memorandum 200.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty wild.
So this one here, called the JASSE Memorandum. It is if you search up JAF Memorandum Archive, there should be an archive.org link, and that provides you with the complete document.
JASSE?
JAS is in Frederick.
Oh, F.
Two Fs, yes, sir.
Gotcha. I was hearing F. JAF Memorandum Archive. All right. Let's hear it.
Yeah, archive. And then on archive.org, there's a link there.
Yep.
And there's 2 viewable files. It's the second viewable file.
What's it called?
It's called Original JAF Memo Horvath Compilation.pdf. And it's on archive.org.
I'm on archive.org. I don't see it, but fill us in while I'm looking for it. You can just tell us what the...
Well, essentially, on page 9, which is my favorite page of the document, it outlines a bunch of measures that the government should take to reduce population. And this is written by the guy who was the head of Planned Parenthood at the time.
Yeah, it says Jeff.
And one of the measures that they state... Sorry?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. I'm just saying the JAF document is an infamous document produced by Planned Parenthood in 1969.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And so it talks about a bunch of measures that they can take here. And I'm not lying to you. One of the measures that they can take is increasing the sense of chronic depression in society. That's one of the measures it tells the government to take.
Really?
And to increase and to encourage homosexuality. That's
and
literally
this person
what it says in this document.
And this was the head of Planned Parenthood who wrote this.
Yes, sir. It's
now, how much?
crazy.
I will say this: how much influence did this person have? Like, were they just writing a letter? And obviously, like, was Planned Parenthood a big thing in 1969?
I mean,
I
don't
to the
know,
point
honestly.
where it had this kind of
honestly,
like crazy influence. You know what I mean? Like, were they like, "Hey, do this," and then they were like, was someone at the government reading this and being like, "Oh, this guy's got some good points. We should do this stuff," or was it like, "Hey, I sent a letter to the government." Oh, here we go. Yeah, I see this right. I found it. You know what I mean? Like it was.
Yeah. No,
who's
for sure.
Bernard Berelson?
Yeah, so that's some historian guy. I don't really know that much about him.
Okay, so Bernard Berelson is who this is written to. So he was a behavioral scientist. But he was a scientist. He was like a teacher.
Certainly.
Yeah. But so this guy was not in the government.
What I've understood, yes, from what I've understood though, is that this like document, you know how the last one I showed you, it's from 75, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just using this as like further evidence that they're at least like, I'm not saying currently this is still an ideology that's being pushed,
sure.
But at least at the time you can see that this ideology, it had great prevalence because we now have 2 people that are like, you can either regard, well, I guess 3 people technically, you can either regard them as intellectuals, or you can regard them as political figures, or you can regard them as both, honestly, because they do play a bit of both.
Okay.
And so, for example, Kissinger and JAF, those are 2 individuals now that are basically regurgitating very similar ideas, right? And JAF takes it a step further, you know, mentioning the chronic depression aspect of it and the increasing homosexuality aspect of it. And also these prescriptions are more of a domestic policy piece of advice, whereas Kissinger's prescriptions were more for foreign policy and to protect the foreign interests of the United States.
Why did they want to reduce the population of the United States?
Well, I'm assuming it's probably something similar to why they would want to reduce the population of those lesser developed countries as well. It's easier to maintain control over a smaller population, right? Like there was something I was watching, I don't remember what it was, but they're basically talking about like back in the day, it was really easy for you to just control 1 million people rather than kill them, because killing them like actually required you to
kill
go
them.
in person and
Right.
actually like execute a deed. Whereas like you could just spread an idea and it would control 1 million people far easier. But now it's actually far more expedient to just eliminate people en masse as to actually try and like coerce them into a new thought process. You know what I mean?
Interesting. So this is kind of a check in the Kanye box where he's saying that because he was saying that this is the current Holocaust that's going on is the Planned Parenthood. But again, they're not forcing anybody. Although this guy did say he wanted to force people. It does actually say compulsory abortion and compulsory.
Yeah, no, there's a
sterilization.
lot of crazy stuff. And it talks about like discouraging like family units and stuff like that, and like taxing married couples more heavily than unmarried couples. Like it just talks about like all these measures to take to reduce population. And like I said, I'm not even trying to come out here and make a claim that can't be substantiated saying like, oh, this still has influence to this very day. But
Yeah.
it is very interesting that this piece of information, alongside that National Security Study Memorandum 200 document, like these two documents hand in hand with one another, it does paint a very interesting picture of like the intelligentsia and the intellectual class at the time, like how they perceive humanity. Because personally, I don't see humans as something to be like, you know, just like removed because it's like inconvenient or something like that. Like I think we are truly all a gift, and like we all could really bring something good. Like your kid, like to me, this is how I think these people see the world, like these top intellectuals. I think they think that your child is more likely to be Hitler than they are to be Gandhi. That's what I think. I think that they think, oh yeah, your child's probably not going to come in and make good in the world. They're probably just going to do a lot of bad things. And I think that's just because they have like a very negative perception of humanity, which in some regards is totally warranted. But
weird. I mean, I feel like they would be more of the like, we need worker drones, you know, like they're like, we want people to have kids because we need more drones to just do shit that they don't want to do.
Yeah, well, it would increase the tax base and the labor force, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But we now also see that there's like other means of, you know, increasing productivity that don't necessarily, you know, involve human labor. Like we know that there's like factories that are like predominantly run by machines and stuff, like assembly lines. Like you're not an individual working on an assembly line for the most part anymore, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it does say here compulsory abortion of out of wedlock pregnancies. But again, I guess I'm like, so this guy was he was just sending this to a tax, or not a tax, a university or whatever. Like he was the head of family planning. That is pretty messed up. The Center for Family Planning Program.
It's definitely strange. Yeah, it's definitely strange. And like, obviously there's like that whole, like, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's like this whole scandal or controversy with like Margaret Sanger.
Yeah.
And that whole thing of her saying like, we don't want it to come out that we are like trying to like sterilize like the black population.
Well, that's what Kanye said.
Kanye
said that specifically.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I've read that letter, and the way that I've taken it, like there's two ways that you can take it. And like reading this document, I feel like there is one way that's probably more likely than the other. But when I read that letter, like with Margaret Sanger stating that, there's two ways you can take it. You can either take it as she's saying like, this is what we are doing and we don't want it to come off this way, or we are doing something and it may come off this way and we don't want it to come off that way. You know what I mean? So like, I don't think she's necessarily like, I don't know. I mean, she could actually want to be actively harming specifically minority communities. That's possible. I have no idea. But like when I try and just analyze that specific piece of evidence objectively, it is not a very straightforward.
Yeah, it's not like a smoking gun, if you were.
Yeah, exactly. But with this complementing it, and I'm pretty sure this is like the guy that either succeeded her or preceded her. I think he succeeded her. I don't. Think
she started it, right?
And yeah, she started it, and I think he was like the next guy after her. I don't think he was like with her at the time. I don't know. I don't know too much, but I just thought it was interesting.
This
is
quite interesting.
Weird, man.
Yeah, this is really weird. How much time do you just spend on archive.org?
Chronic depression. Yeah, no. Okay, archive.org. I'm not lying to you, Danny. It's an underutilized tool.
I know. It says there's only
on archive.org.
This thing only has 3,000 views, and I imagine they're mostly just you.
Did you? Yeah, it probably is. Did you ever see that document with the UN saying like hunger is good?
No, but I'm currently on 48-hour fast, so I agree. I've been compromised.
Yeah, so basically, like the UN put up some like think piece earlier this year, basically like talking about like how hunger is really good actually, and it makes like hungry people are the best workers, and like if we didn't have hunger, like the world wouldn't be able to function, and like all the nice things that we have in like the West, like you wouldn't be able to afford them because
I mean,
like
basically
you need
just
a hungry
intermittent
person
fasting
to do the job. I mean, what they're saying is it's not entirely wrong. It's just extraordinarily Machiavellian, and I don't really like that.
Yeah.
Because you're not wrong saying that hungry people are going to work harder, but it's like, is that really the path you want to take? And then the UN removed it from their website. But archive.org, this is why I'm saying archive.org is a great resource, because you can put in the URL. You'll see, like, they put it up and they took it down. It's like, it's a crazy little fucking letter. But if you ever have time, I'll definitely search.
Yeah, I'll check it out. All right. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for calling in.
No worries. Have a good one, man. See you later.
Bye.